So a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago by now, I watched and reviewed Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Martin Scorsese film, and I lightly touched on the subject in the review. But I feel like I'll take this opportunity to go more into detail on the biggest controversy surrounding the film. That being the criticism of the film not really being from the perspective of the Osage people or an Osage character, and rather being from a white perspective. Not only a white perspective, but a white perspective of the white man who carried out these heinous murders. Now, I will clarify right here before I get started. I don't disagree with this criticism. I very much see where people are coming from. It comes from a concern of the lack of Native American voices in movies that have been pervasive since pretty much the beginning of cinema itself. Hollywood is famous for many things, but one of them is not a positive portrayal of Native Americans. And I think the story would really benefit from an Osage perspective to show the real tragedy of this all. But I think there's also benefits to showing it from Ernest Burkhart's perspective, the terrible murderer. And the main benefit is evil is worth examining. A common theme in Scorsese's films that I mentioned in my Letterboxd reviews is one of evil. It is men wrestling with temptations and dark desires within themselves. And I don't mean just in his gangster films, I mean in films like After Hours or The King of Comedy. The Last Temptation of Christ deals with Jesus wrestling with his temptations. Even something like The Age of Innocence, Scorsese's cleanest film, is about a man wrestling with his temptations. So often in media, the villain is rarely the protagonist. They're often at an arm's length. There's a barrier between them and the protagonist, and even more so between them and the audience. The audience kind of sees them as a monster, and obviously, yes, the people in this movie are metaphorically monsters. They are awful human beings, but they are that. They are still human beings. And what films like this do is they take people like this and they go, what made them change? Ernest Burkhart was a war veteran. You know, he fought for his country, and then he comes back home and he turns into a genocidal sociopath. When we study and deconstruct evil, then we're able to recognize patterns like that in the real world, and we can quickly call out evil in reality. We're able to call out fascism and racism and genocidal tendencies in our present world. Portraying Ernest Burkhart as, seemingly like one of us, he has a family, he has people around him, he somewhat has values, not very strong values, but he seems to be a functioning human being. And perhaps another thing too, and maybe this is the most uncomfortable, the most touchy subject for viewers, is that sometimes we can look at a character like that and see ourselves in him. It's very uncomfortable, but that's what the best art does. It challenges us. It would be so easy to have these people at a distance and just portray them as monsters, and the viewers could just easily hate them. There are so many movies that, they stand for, important morals, and they want to make a difference, but it's easy. It's easy to watch, I don't know, a World War II movie and hate the Nazis. It's easy to watch a movie about sex trafficking and hate the sex traffickers. Art should challenge you. It should make you look inside yourself and think, wait a minute, maybe I am a part of this system. There were no mention of the murders. Am I carrying that on? Do I also live a double life of a domestic front and hide a much darker side to me? Maybe not darker, but maybe just, parts of yourself that you don't easily share to people? Granted, you're probably not like the people in this movie, but still, maybe you are in a way. And when the film makes us sympathize with the character, when it shows their hardships, it does kind of bring a humanity. It kind of makes it even worse. This actually did go into detail in my review. is that some movies they humanize their villains, and they make you sympathize with them a little more. A lot of Scorsese's films, though, they'll humanize the villains, but still make you detest them, and it somehow makes them even more villainous in that sense. That they know right from wrong, yet they consistently choose wrong. Ernest Burkhart is a coward. He chooses to poison his wife in favor of satisfying his uncle. He chose the old crusty white man instead of his wife. These people are absolute scumbags. I hope they're burning in hell. But the humanization is kind of paradoxical in a way and really does drive home the main themes of hatred in this film. It really emphasizes pure evil that has manifested in this world. The other obvious reason is that Martin Scorsese is not Osage. So to the best of his ability, he tried to represent the Osage people through consultants and tribe members. But at the end of the day, him making a film from their perspective would come off as very inauthentic. So he had to resort to, his usual style of filmmaking and showing just the evils of men. Scorsese cannot in good faith tell a story about the tragedies of the Osage, but he can tell a story about the evils of his own people.